Upon first glance, it may seem that the boulette is the apex predator of the Lakian wastes. However, these massive sand sharks are just as often prey as they are predator, thanks to the true king of the desert, the oozes. These pockets of living clay would devour anything foolish enough to wander into their area. The Gelatinous Disciples studied the oozes' techniques, hoping to apply them against the opposing wasters. Learning their ways felt unnatural and took time, but to be fair, it's not like they were going anywhere. If there's anything I've learned from studying YouTube trends, it's that slime never goes out of style. From the early days of Nickelodeon, there's a primal part of ourselves that desires to be covered in something sticky and icky, or a repulsion so strong that we can't help but look away. Venom and Carnage might seem like the obvious inspiration to do a slimy character, but my inspiration actually begins with something more akin to Po from Kung Fu Panda or E Honda from Street Fighter, a slower, steadier monk that's able to take a few hits and dish out some serious punishment as a result. But then I realized that the homebrew setting I made was positively swarming with oozes, so basically I tried to make something thicky and ended up making something squicky. Skadoosh. My general characterization of the monk class is that it is fast and low maintenance. They have the lowest starting gold because they don't need spell components, weapons, or armor. They can get everything done with their body thanks to martial arts. Unarmored movement makes you faster when you're not wearing armor, and as you level up, it gets better. At level 9, you can even go up walls and over water without falling in, as long as you end your turn somewhere solid. Step of the Wind lets you dash or disengage as a bonus action after spending a key point. Those are a resource that monks get to kind of spend as they need to, one for every level, so you end up having quite a few of them by the end of your monk build. You even have slow fall, so that you don't have to worry about taking falling damage, and you can just jump off of a building if you need to.
Woo! Superhero landing! Yeah, that's really hard on your knees.
Subclasses range from punch someone so hard they die to Kamehameha Light. There's even one that gives you calligraphy. Of course, that's banned in Adventurers League for being too powerful. But of course, those subclasses don't matter to us. We're gonna do our own thing, and our own thing is kind of weird. Y'all voted for a weird one. You can go to the Patreon to vote again. Early Patreon plug. Also, hey, the support for the Wire Weaver was off the charts. Thank you so much for everyone who joined, and I hope we get more people in for this one who want to see more subclasses and that kind of stuff. This is off the cuff, this isn't in the script, just thanks a lot. Monks generally don't have a connection to material things, but Gelatinous Disciples take that a step further. There are rumors of ancient key rituals being performed by the Gelatinous Disciples to turn their bones into a malleable and pliable cartilage. There are even some reports of monks who are able to get rid of their bones altogether.
I poke him. Are there bones in him?
Of course, there is always the possibility that these claims were exaggerated, and the extra durability that the Gelatinous Disciples had was just a mixture of extra fat, muscle, and blistered tissue from living in the desert. However they obtained their fluid form, it gave them resistance to non-magical attacks from bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage. Strangely enough, armor seemed to compact their bodies back into a normal shape, making them take regular damage, so there were a lot of exposed torsos. It wasn't enough to resist damage for them, though. They wanted to be able to take more damage. By sacrificing their speed, Gelatinous Disciples were able to give themselves a bonus to their HP equal to a standard monk's unarmored movement feat. Now, keep in mind, this only applied to the extra movement from unarmored movement. There were plenty of Gelatinous Disciples with more barbaric tendencies that still enjoyed fast movement, or some that dipped their toes into spellcasting for longer strides and hastier strikes. Enduring an opponent's attacks is one way to defeat them, but eventually you do need to strike. The Patient Predator ability lets you make an unarmed strike as a reaction after someone hits you with a melee attack. Considering these gelatinous monks resisted most damage coming in from melee range, a lot of times it led to people trying to disengage, but oozes are not likely to let go of their prey. That's why when someone would leave the threatened area of a gelatinous monk, they were able to make 2 opportunity attacks instead of 1. If one of those attacks hit, it would reduce the target's movement speed by half. If both hit, it would reduce it down to 10 feet total. Of course, some gelatinous disciples even took the Sentinel feat to stop movement altogether and make opportunity attacks even when people were formally trying to disengage. First, the disciples learned defense, then offense. But learning to move like an ooze was the most disturbing part of this transformation. At the 11th level of Monk, Gelatinous Disciples get the Slimy Shuffle. This lets you end your turn on a wall or on a ceiling without falling. They also would move at a normal pace while crawling and could stand up from prone without expending extra movement. Because ranged attacks have disadvantage on prone targets, this would lead to a lot of monks skittering around on all fours before propping themselves up right in an opponent's face. I am not one to revel in the destruction of a civilization, but I do find great comfort knowing that everyone who could move like this is now dead. There are few records of monks who fully ascended to become jelly, but the ones I have found are truly horrifying. At the 17th level of Monk, Gelatinous Disciples can create the Hunter's Territory. By spending 3 key points as an action, they create a 30-foot cube of slime, and they can expand it an additional 5 feet in every direction by spending an additional key point. This area is difficult terrain. Creatures who start their turn inside must make a strength save against your Monk DC, or they will be restrained. They can repeat this at the beginning of their next turn. While in the area, Gelatinous Disciples can use their bonus action to teleport to another piece of the area, even one that is not touching the floor, and end their turn there without falling, sinking into the ooze and popping out somewhere else. A number of creatures equal to your wisdom modifier will be able to ignore these effects. Somehow the Gelatinous Disciples ended up traveling with compatriots, despite their disgusting tendencies. So how do these abilities pair with the rest of the levels of Monk? The Unarmored Movement gives you 10 extra HP at level 2 and another 5 at level 6, 10, 14, and 18. That's 75% of the tough feat by the time you're done, with the ability to still take the tough feat for a truly ridiculous amount of health. Evasion is also pretty great. It doesn't officially give you resistance to fire damage, but taking half damage on failed dex saves and no damage on successful ones will shut down big area of effect spells, which is probably the best way to deal with something you're not really able to hit with a regular weapon. Diamond Soul gives you proficiency with all saving throws. That's just really good. Prone walking will give most ranged attacks disadvantage. You'll also have resistance to non-magical ammunition, which means you have less damage to cut down with deflect missiles before you can rubber band it back. I know that specifically non-magical bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage might seem like it falls off at higher levels, but Empty Body comes in at level 18 to make up for that, giving you resistance to everything except force, while you have the extra HP from your fluid form. Now, I've been calling the Gelatinous Disciples slime, but it could also be a contortionist or someone with a little extra meat on their bones. Or it could be cheese. Specifically, multi-class cheese. Mixing the Gelatinous Disciple with Artillerist Artificer would let you give yourself temporary HP as a bonus action on every turn, helping you take advantage of those non-magical resistances. Barbarians get Rage. Rage lets you resist all bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage, not just the non-magical stuff. And if you go Beast Barbarian, you can also eat people. That's kind of fun flavor. Rangers can get Hunter's Mark, which is a very good spell to put on any monk, but it's a very, very good spell when you have extra attacks using your reaction, since Hunter's Mark applies to all of them. The Gelatinous Disciples' entire goal is to get next to someone and stop them from leaving. So against a single target, Hunter's Mark, that's just delicious. Speaking of getting in, mixing with Rogue would give you cunning action to dash every turn you wanted to without spending any key points, helping you get in really close. Also, the attacks from Patient Predator for people who are leaving your threatened area don't have to be unarmed, so you could use that to get your sneak attack off as they're leaving. I've always thought that Monk and Cleric go together very well, generally because monks get faster and fast clerics are good. This monk isn't as fast, but this monk has a lot more health. Having a healer who doesn't die or need as much healing means that that healer can heal you more. Or you could heal yourself with all of your resistances and extra HP and be an absolute nightmare to take down. However, Druid is by far the nastiest of these multi-classes. Because you're unarmored while you're in your wild shape, you can still get the bonuses of fluid form, meaning resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage while you are wild shaped. Also, the flavor of a weird oozy dog or oozy bear attacking people is delicious, and you should absolutely do that. Or you could go Spore Druid and really lean into some stinky fluid, but don't let anyone tell you I told you how to make the great and mighty poo. He's also probably a bard. Overall, I think the Gelatinous Disciples might be the most disturbing things I've studied from the Moria region. Their impressive bulk makes the physical prowess of the monk even more intimidating. But is the extra HP worth it for sacrificing your speed? Do the resistances to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage make you a little busted? Well, I think the best way to find out would be to playtest this. So why don't you go join my Patreon? At the $5 tier, you'll get access to this homebrew, the other homebrew I've made, Wire Weaver Artificer, to be Spider-Man in Dungeons & Dragons, if you like Spider-Man, as well as character sheets for every episode of Building Character. That'll make it very easy to put together a one-shot with your friends where you can test out how these subclasses work together and how they work with the existing classes in the game. After you're done playing in that game, you can hop into my Discord and talk about your experiences with other people who have been playtesting it. Again, the support on the Wire Weaver video was overwhelming. We have so many people in that Discord who are so excited about these subclasses, so if you want to talk about them with someone, that's just the $2 tier. That's all you gotta do. But if you can't afford that, there's the $1 tier, which lets you vote in the polls for Building Character, but also lets you vote in the polls for which of the subclasses you want to see next. This week we're doing 2 strength-based classes. There is the Way of the Masked Champion Barbarian, a barbarian that excels with unarmed strikes and improvised weapons, so long as there's an audience, and the Oath of Brilliance Paladin, a knight with so much pride they will shine bright even in the darkest depths. If you can't afford any of that, liking and subscribing still helps the channel a lot. I appreciate it, and I hope you enjoyed the video anyway. We'll be back soon with more from the Gilded Coast of Moria.